India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
We're live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsNight, India's voice to the world. I'm Lepakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. Strongest criticism of Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by US President Joe Biden as he calls his actions on Gaza a mistake, says he doesn't agree with his approach. Abortion rights back in focus as Arizona's top court revives a ban on abortions under a law from 1864. President Biden blames Republicans for ripping away women's freedom. Muslims across the world celebrate the festival Eid-ul-Fitr, India to celebrate Eid on Thursday. And moving on, US President Joe Biden said Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Gaza policy was a mistake and urged Israel to call for a ceasefire. In an interview to US Spanish language TV channel, Biden calls for a ceasefire and total access to all food and medicine going into Gaza. His remarks on a ceasefire marked a shift from his previous comments in which he has said the burden lies with Hamas to agree to a truce and hostage release deal.
I don't agree with his approach. I think it's outrageous that those three vehicles were hit by drones and taken out on a highway where it wasn't like it was along the shore. It wasn't like there was a convoy moving there, etc. So what I'm calling for is for the Israelis to just call for a ceasefire, allow for the next 6-8 weeks total access to all food and medicine going into the country. I've spoken with everyone from the Saudis to the Jordanians to the Egyptians. They're prepared to move in. They're prepared to move this food in. And I think there's no excuse to not provide for the medical and the food needs of those people. They should be done now.
Well, meanwhile, an in-person meeting of Israeli and US officials on the planned operation in the Gaza city of Rafah are expected next week.
There's constant communications happening every day, but as it relates to this particular conversation, when they're going to be here in person, members of the Israeli government, that's going to happen in a couple of weeks.
Meanwhile, Israel says aid is moving into Gaza more quickly after international pressure to increase access. It said 468 aid trucks moved into Gaza on Tuesday, following 419 on Monday. International pressure to increase access on Israel sharpened last week, including from its closest ally, the United States. White House has termed the substantial increase of aid into Gaza as good, but said is not good enough.
We're talking to them about alternative and, in our judgment, effective ways at solving a problem that needs to be solved, but doing it in a way that does not endanger the innocent. Those conversations are ongoing. My expectation is that we'll see Israeli colleagues again next week to pursue that.
Well, the UK joined 8 other nations in an international large-scale dropping of essential aid coinciding with the end of Ramadan. Participating countries include Jordan, Indonesia, United Arab Emirates, Netherlands, France, Germany, Egypt and the United States. And meanwhile, Cameron said the UK's position on arms sale to Israel was unchanged, but reaffirmed his concerns around the humanitarian access issue in Gaza.
The latest assessment leaves our position on export licences unchanged. This is consistent with the advice that I and other ministers have received, and as ever we will keep the position under review. Let me be clear though, we continue to have grave concerns around the humanitarian access issue in Gaza, both for the period that was assessed and subsequently.
Well, Arizona's top court on Tuesday upheld an 1864 law that bans nearly all abortions. The Arizona Supreme Court ruled 4-2 in favor of an anti-abortion obstetrician. The court, however, also put its rulings on hold for the moment and sent the case back to a lower court to hear additional arguments. The ruling was focused on a law on the books long before Arizona achieved a statehood. It outlaws abortion from the moment of conception, except when necessary to save the life of the mother, and it makes no exceptions for rape or incest. Doctors prosecuted under the law could face fines and 2 to 5 years in prison. Also, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, in her first remarks after top court's ruling, said the ban is extreme and hurts women.
Arizona's 2022 abortion ban is extreme and hurts women. And the near total Civil War era ban that continues to hang over our heads only serves to create more chaos for women and doctors in our state. As governor, I promised I would do everything in my power to protect our reproductive freedoms.
And announcing Arizona abortion ban, the U.S. President Joe Biden said on Tuesday that millions of Arizonans will soon live under an even more extreme and dangerous ban. Biden, in a statement, said this ruling is a result of the extreme agenda of Republican elected officials who are committed to ripping away women's freedom. And Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will hold a summit with U.S. President Joe Biden, showcasing closer security and economic ties between the allies. Wednesday's summit is a historic upgrade in defense ties between the longtime allies in the face of China's growing might. Two leaders are expected to announce measures to enhance security cooperation, to enable greater coordination and integration of forces. On Tuesday, U.S. President Joe Biden and the First Lady welcomed Japanese Prime Minister and his wife to the White House. Kishida is the fifth world leader honored by Biden with a state dinner since he took office in 2021. Kishida also addresses a roundtable on critical and emerging technologies hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Washington. He said he saw opportunities for more collaboration with the United States in next-generation computer chips.
Japan welcomes investment from the United States that push forward such cooperation in critical and emerging technology. The economic growth our country obtains through your investments shall serve as a funding source of further investments into the United States by Japanese entities.
The Prime Minister has also been invited to address a joint meeting of Congress on Thursday. He will be just the second Japanese leader to address the body. Shinzo Abe gave a speech to Congress in 2015. And voting is underway for the parliamentary polls in South Korea. Voting is seen as a referendum on President Yoon Suk-yeol. The opposition Democratic Party, which already dominates the 300-member legislature, has hammered Yoon and his conservative People Power Party for mismanaging the economy and failing to rein in inflation. PPP leader Han Dong-hoon said a big win by the DP, whose leader is facing corruption charges, would create a crisis for the country. He warned against giving the opposition an unprecedented supermajority of 200 seats. Yoon, about to enter the third year of his 5-year presidential term, has been suffering from low approval rating for months, having come to power in 2022 bound to cut taxes, ease business regulations and expand family support in the world's fastest aging society. And for more, we have our correspondent Chris Gilbert joining us. Well, Chris, South Koreans vote for the new parliament. What is at stake?
Well, there's a lot at stake for both of the main parties, particularly for the ruling minority party, the People Power Party, or the PPP, that of course is the party of the President Yoon Suk-yeol, but does not have control of South Korea's parliament at the moment. They are a minority. And if they are to continue that way, following today's poll, then that makes Yoon Suk-yeol effectively a lame duck president for the remaining 3 years of his time in office. Now, for the current opposition party, which currently has control of the parliament, the Democratic Party, and their ruling coalition, so not their ruling coalition partners, but their coalition partners, their opposition coalition partners, there's a lot of potential in this opportunity for them. They currently have about 181 of the 300 seats in South Korea's parliament. Now, if they are to extend that to 200, as you mentioned, a 2/3 majority, that gives them the power, the coalition, the power to veto executive decisions by Yoon Suk-yeol. It also gives them the power to impeach the president. And so it is a very, inward-looking domestic situation at hand that could really define how Yoon Suk-yeol can govern for the next 3 years, and the knock-on effects of how that might handle South Korea's behavior on the global stage.
Right. Also, Chris, away from the vendettas and the political scandals, the greatest source of concern for many Koreans are rising prices right now. What are the other issues which are dominant?
Well, you mentioned the depopulation crisis, and that is certainly number one on everyone's mind at the moment. And both parties have come out with ways that they would want to tackle them. The Democratic Party saying that they're going to target, rental housing subsidies for families with 2 children. The People Power Party looking at measures for child sick days, so parents can have time off work when their children are sick for about 5 days of the year. Polling and reports suggest that young people in particular are looking for more support to start families. But of course, there is also the economy. There's the ongoing doctor strike and the issues affecting the health sector at the moment. And experts are saying that these issues that are affecting the lives of everyday South Koreans are the main ones that they're going to be voting on. And early polling shows that a record 30% of them have already voted early in this election. It's the highest ever number of early voters to vote ahead of today's poll, which suggests heightened interest in this election. And we're going to find out the results early tomorrow morning, about 24 hours from now.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for that information from there. And moving on, UK and Rwanda are looking forward to the first migrant deportation flights in spring under Britain's plan to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda. On Tuesday, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak met Rwandan President Paul Kagame in London as the UK government deals with delays to the asylum seeker deportation scheme announced back in April 2022. Both leaders also discussed the pioneering UK and Rwanda migration and economic development partnership, which will break the business model of criminal gangs risking lives at sea. And still to come in DD India News Hour. Parents of a teenager who shot and killed 4 classmates in U.S. Michigan convicted of manslaughter, sentenced to between 10 and 15 years, a rare case of parents being held responsible in a school shooting. Ireland gets youngest ever Prime Minister, Simon Harris. And physicist Peter Higgs, who shed light on dark matter, dies at 94.
Poll Pulse tracks the pulse of the poll soul-bound southernmost Indian state of Tamil Nadu.
Voting is our responsibility.
This is a big fight between BJP and India alliance.
Will you vote?
Yeah, power of democracy. This is a huge.
BJP is trying her best, for the past 10 years under the flagship of Sri Narendra Modi Garu.
The 2024 Lok Sabha polls in Tamil Nadu are witnessing the battle royale between DMK, AIADMK and the BJP.
You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, the parents of the teenager who killed 4 students in the 2021 school shooting in Oxford in Michigan, James and Jennifer Crumbley, were each sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison weeks after being convicted of manslaughter. This is a rare case of parents to be held criminally responsible for a mass school shooting committed by their child. James and Jennifer, who each had faced up to 15 years in prison, have already been in prison for over 2 years since their arrest in a Detroit warehouse days after the shooting. Though they were tried separately, their sentencing took place together in an Oakland County courtroom. Ethan Crumbley's parents were sentenced immediately after several parents of the victims gave emotional statements in an Oakland County courtroom in Pontiac in Michigan. And member countries of the Organization of American States rejected the raid by Ecuadorian police on the Mexican embassy to arrest a former official. OAS Secretary General Luis Almagro said international law must be respected and diplomatic headquarters are inviolable. He also added that the raid could not be justified by internal laws. In the first extraordinary session of the OAS Permanent Council, Almagro also urged both countries to find a peaceful solution to disputes. A second extraordinary session of the OAS Permanent Council will be held today in Washington to find an amicable solution to the breakdown of bilateral relations between Ecuador and Mexico. And Venezuelan former oil minister Tariq El Aissami has been arrested in a corruption probe into state oil company PDVSA. Former finance minister Simon Zerpa and businessman Sir Mark Lopez have also been detained. El Aissami resigned in March 2023 amid a wide anti-corruption probe ordered by Maduro, which has been mainly focused on wrongdoing at PDVSA. El Aissami has not spoken publicly for more than a year. The 3 men are facing charges of treason, money laundering, conspiracy and misdirection of public funds. The case involves a network of PDVSA executives who use their positions to carry out illegal operations, including some involving cryptocurrencies. All of the men have been under sanctions by the United States since 2017, with El Aissami and Lopez facing drug charges. And Colombian Foreign Minister Luis Gilberto Murillo told reporters at the United Nations that calls for dialogue from the National Liberation Army are a good sign. Colombian leftist rebel group, the ELN, has requested an extraordinary meeting with the government, saying peace talks were in a critical state. President Gustavo Petro restarted talks with the ELN at the end of 2022 as part of his efforts to end Colombia's 6-decade conflict. The ELN and the government have held 6 rounds of talks so far, resulting in a bilateral ceasefire. But the rebels said in February the negotiations were in crisis, though the 2 sides later said they expected another round of talks this month. And Ireland's parliament has elected Simon Harris as the country's new and youngest ever prime minister, officially taking office in Dublin to succeed Leo Varadkar following his surprising resignation last month. Harris ran unopposed to replace Varadkar as leader of the ruling Fine Gael party, and the final formalities were completed in the Dáil, Ireland's parliament. He has held a number of government positions since being earmarked as a rising political star in his late 20s, most recently serving as the Minister for Higher Education and Science. Harris was elected to Parliament at 24 and appointed to Cabinet before he turned 30. Before Harris, Varadkar was the country's youngest ever leader when first elected at age 38.
Deputy Eamon O'Keefe. Deputy Patrick Costello.
And Togo has rescheduled legislative elections for April 29th after delaying the ballot over a highly contested constitutional reform. The Togo presidency, in a statement, announced the new election day. The elections were rescheduled after the cabinet meet on Tuesday. Elections had been set for April 20th, but the government postponed them, saying consultations were needed over the reform. However, opposition parties called the move a bid to keep President Faure Gnassingbe in power longer. The constitutional amendment has triggered discussion over the rule of Gnassingbe. He has been in power since 2005 after succeeding his father, who governed for 3 decades after a military coup. And Bolivian doctors went on a national strike on Tuesday to protest a retirement bill they claim will force them to retire when they turn 65 years old. Doctors started a 72-hour national strike with a march that was joined by teachers against what they call the forced retirement law the government wants to get passed in Congress. In Bolivia, the voluntary retirement age is set at 58 years old for men and 55 years old for women, although the president of La Paz Medical College said doctors need to work longer to achieve a decent retirement pension. And in Chile, workers from the Huachipato steel plant in the Biobío region marched to the capital on Tuesday to protest against the suspension of steel production at their main plant. The workers shouted slogans, held banners and signs with the faces of Chilean President Gabriel Boric, Finance Minister Mario Marcel and Economy Minister Nicolas Grau, demanding that they take action to prevent the permanent closure of the plant. The Huachipato steel plant, one of Chile's largest steel producers, announced in March that it was suspending steel production at its plant in Biobío because it could no longer compete with imports from China. According to the governor of Biobío region, Rodrigo Diaz, the decision put more than 20,000 jobs at risk. An area of low pressure in the Atlantic Ocean brought coastal flooding, rough seas and rain to parts of England and western France early this week. Footage captured and showed huge waves crashing over a sea wall in Saint-Malo, France, flooding a street as passers-by watched on. Weather warnings were issued across Brittany upon reports Storm Pierrick would bring strong winds to the region. Transport was disrupted in parts of Normandy and several regions in France were placed on orange alert. And Russia and Kazakhstan ordered more than 100,000 people to evacuate after swiftly melting snow swelled mighty rivers beyond a bursting point in the west, flooding the area for at least 70 years. The deluge of melt water overwhelmed scores of settlements in the Ural Mountains, Siberia and areas of Kazakhstan close to rivers. The Ural is Europe's third longest river, which flows through Russia and Kazakhstan into the Caspian. A state of emergency was also declared in Tyumen, a major oil-producing region of western Siberia, the largest hydrocarbon basin in the world.
Есть проблемы?
And climate activists have hailed a European court's verdict linking poor climate policy to human rights violations. They say the European Court of Human Rights verdict in a case brought against Switzerland is a step towards climate justice, as it could open up national governments to lawsuits by citizens affected by environmental hazards. Ishan Garg has more from Brussels on this.
In a verdict on Tuesday, the court said Switzerland had failed to put in place mechanisms to quantify new greenhouse gas emission targets and did not meet its past targets. Switzerland says it will comply with the court's orders to address the gaps in its climate policy and work towards adhering to its greenhouse emission reduction targets. However, it says it will take time to come up with procedures to address the ECHR's concerns. These policy lapses were held to be akin to a violation of the human rights of the 2,000 elderly Swiss women who had approached the court. The court called a good quality of life a basic right and said government inaction was breaching it. The judges also criticized the Swiss National Court for not providing the women with proper legal remedies. Switzerland's representative to the Rights Court said it was a historic decision, one that will not only have an impact on Switzerland but countries across the continent. This is the first time an international court has considered poor climate policy a violation of human rights, and climate activists say it has set the precedent for other concerned citizens to seek legal remedies from their courts over government inaction against climate change. Some say this is the biggest achievement for climate campaigners since 2015, when world leaders signed the Paris Accords. They had agreed to cap the rise in average global temperatures to well below 2 degrees. On Tuesday, the ECHR's verdict coincided with the European Union's climate service releasing data showing that March was the 10th month in a row to be the hottest on record. The EU has pledged to become carbon neutral by 2050. And activists say this new ruling could become a tool for citizens to hold countries in the bloc accountable if they do not meet those commitments. Ishan Gargan, Brussels, reporting for DD India.
And Biscuit Jatra is a famous festival celebrated in Bhaktapur district of Nepal. It usually falls in April and marks the Nepalese New Year. During this festival, a chariot carrying images of various deities is pulled through the streets, accompanied by music, dancing and celebrations. The chariot procession is during the festival involves carrying images of various deities through the streets. Devotees participate in these processions to show their devotion and seek blessings from the divine. The Biscuit Jatra festival in Bhaktapur, Nepal is steeped in ancient beliefs and traditions. Biscuit Jatra marks the Nepalese New Year and is seen as a time of renewal and rejuvenation. The festival coincides with the spring season and the beginning of the agricultural cycle. It is believed to invoke blessings for a bountiful harvest and fertility in the land. And the United Arab Emirates, along with other Gulf Cooperation Council countries and many Arab nations, are celebrating Eid-ul-Fitr. This joyous occasion marks the conclusion of the holy month of Ramadan for millions of Muslims across the region. The timing of Eid-ul-Fitr, which translates to the feast of breaking the fast, is determined by the sighting of the crescent moon in accordance with the Muslim lunar calendar. Special Eid prayers were offered to the mosques on this auspicious occasion. And Eid-ul-Fitr will be celebrated in India on Thursday as the moon was not sighted on Tuesday evening. Eid, however, is being celebrated today across Kerala and in Leh and Kargil. Eid-ul-Fitr is celebrated across the world on different days, and it is determined by the sighting of the crescent moon, which is supposed to denote the start of the Shawwal month in the lunar Islamic calendar. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. In Italy, at least 3 people killed and 4 reportedly missing in an explosion underground at a hydroelectric power plant. Italian rescue teams continued to search for survivors. 4 Chicago police officers shot at a suspect nearly 100 times in less than a minute after the man opened fire on them during a traffic stop last month. Body cam video of the incident shows officer reacting after shots are fired and then aiding an injured officer. Nobel Prize laureate physicist Peter Higgs has died at age 94. His theory of an undetected particle in the universe changed science and was vindicated by a Nobel Prize-winning discovery half a century later. The discovery of the Higgs boson in 2012 was widely hailed as the biggest advance in knowledge about the cosmos for over 30 years and pointed physics towards ideas that were once science fiction. Around 200 loggerhead turtle hatchlings that were washed up along the Western Cape coastline due to the recent heavy storms have been rescued. Over the past week, Cape Town has seen extreme weather with storms of gale force winds and heavy rains from a cut-off low-pressure system moving into South Africa. And still to come on DD India News Hour. 12 killed in a tragic bus accident in central India's Durg. President and Prime Minister condoles loss of lives. As the first phase of India's general elections approach, political parties intensified their efforts to attract voters, with leaders thronging to the ground to engage with the public and gain support. And we tell you about two archipelagos of India as they go to the polls on April 19th.
As India decides in the world's largest election,
We help you feel the pulse of the nation.
I am Sakal Bhatt.
I am Shubhendu Ghosh.
This election season, join us on a journey of India.
Discover the colors of democracy. Watch Poll Pulse on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Strongest criticism of Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by US President Joe Biden as he calls his action on Gaza a mistake, says he doesn't agree with this approach. Abortion rights back in focus as Arizona's top court revives a ban on abortions under a law from 1864. President Biden blames Republicans for ripping away women's freedom. Voting underway in South Korea for the 22nd parliamentary polls, election seen as a referendum on President Yoon Suk Yeol. Muslims across the world celebrate the festival Eid-ul-Fitr, India to celebrate Eid on Thursday. And on to the details. In a tragic incident, at least 12 lives were claimed and 14 injured after a bus fell into a mine pit in central India's Durg district of Chhattisgarh on Tuesday. The bus carrying workers fell into a ditch around 8:30 in the evening. The workers belonged to a private distillery company of Durg and they were returning home when the bus met an accident. India's President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed their grief and condoled the loss of lives in an accident. Meanwhile, Chhattisgarh Deputy CM Vijay Sharma visited the injured at AIIMS, Raipur in the wake of the accident. And let's now get to the latest in the world's largest democratic election in India. Well, election season is at its peak in India, with parties organizing multiple public meetings as the first phase of voting is slated for the 19th of this month. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to address public meetings in Vellore and Mettupalayam in India's southern state of Tamil Nadu, followed by a meeting in Ramtek in the state of Maharashtra. And for more, Shishir Sheller joins us from Ramtek in Maharashtra. Well, good morning, Shishir. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold an election rally in Maharashtra's Ramtek constituency today. Can you give us the details of the political scene heating up there?
Well, absolutely. This is the second rally of Prime Minister in Maharashtra. The first took place just a day before yesterday in Chandrapur, that is the eastern Vidarbha region of Maharashtra. And today, Prime Minister will address a rally in Ramtek, Lok Sabha constituency, Parliament constituency. And now this constituency is equally important for the NDA and the MVA, because if you look at the background, this constituency was represented by the ex-Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao twice. It was a Congress stronghold area, but later on we've seen that Congress has lost its power, and now we've seen that the NDA alliance is looking quite strong at this parliament, particularly in this parliamentary constituency. Well, this constituency comes to the Shiv Sena here because in the NDA alliance, this particular seat is taken by the Shiv Sena, and that's the reason the NDA alliance now are working for the Shiv Sena's contender, that is Raju Parve. The Prime Minister, when Prime Minister will come here, will address rally, and that's the reason we've seen that the nearest parliamentary constituencies like Ramtek, Nagpur and Bhandara Gondia, the people from this constituency will come here to listen to Prime Minister. We've seen that how Prime Minister have started the campaign in Chandrapur, and he raised various issues that how the previous government was lacking in bringing the development in the state here. But since then, so far, when the new government have taken a charge, the picture of the entire Vidarbha region has changed. Now, of course, in Maharashtra, we have seen a different political realignment because we have seen a different faction in Shiv Sena, we have seen different faction in NCP also. And that's the reason this political realignment is quite unpredictable at this point in time, that exactly who will get the seat here. But looking at the numbers here and looking at the socio-political scenario in Maharashtra, and particularly in Ramtek region, it is actually a reserved seat for the SC category, and that's the reason now the Raju Parve looking quite a strong contender. On the other hand, the Mahavikas Aghadi, that is MVA Alliance, have actually given a ticket to Rashmi Barve, but the Rashmi Barve's form has rejected the last time because of some of the discrepancies in the form. Well, now Rashmi Barve's husband has got this ticket here and he'll be contending, and that's the reason especially the people in this particular region is saying that the NDA's contender has got quite a good chance to win this particular seat. Last two elections in 2014 and 2019, this particular seat was retained by the Shiv Sena. As I told you that now the NDA and the Shiv Sena has made quite a stronghold at this parliamentary constituency, and this is looking quite same here. Well, if you look at the entire political picture in Maharashtra so far, and as I told you about the realignment, now the new member has added into the NDA alliance. Yesterday we've heard that Maharashtra Hanuman Sena chief Raj Thackeray has also announced his support to the NDA faction, the NDA alliance in Maharashtra, and that's the reason the numbers have started increasing in NDA alliance here, and that's the reason even the support has also increased so far.
Right. As you told us, Shishir, Maharashtra, as we know, with 48 significant Lok Sabha seats, emerges as a crucial battleground for the political parties. But the rapid calculation of permutation and combination between the parties have left even the seasoned observers bewildered. It's becoming increasingly challenging to discern which camp each party belongs to. What can you tell us about that?
You rightly said here that which camp is looking strong. It's quite unpredictable to say here. Just looking at the numbers, that what numbers does all these two factions, basically NDA and the MVA has, then we can say that probably the NDA has a maximum number currently, and the seats they won last time. But since then, so many things has changed here. We have seen a different faction in the political parties. New leaders have emerged, and that's the reason now will the NDA will be able to retain the same numbers of seats like they've won last time in 2019 is a major challenge. On the other hand, now the Mahavikas Aghadi also has the same issues because they have got the new leadership also, they've got the new leaders also, and looking at them, will they be able to again get the victory from the NDA's hand or not? It's probably one of the important questions here. But looking at this, so far the political scenario here, what we got to know is that most of the contenders have already been announced. The major political parties have announced the candidature list also, and now the candidates have started working for the campaign here. Most of the star campaigners already swung into action. In Nagpur, we have seen Nitin Gadkari already started the action. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath was also in Maharashtra for campaigning here, and that's the reason now the entire political scenario has heated up in Maharashtra. Leaders from star campaigners from across the party line started campaigning in Maharashtra, and that's the reason now probably it's in the hands of the voter that what are the issues that probably they were thinking about that they will cast their vote.
All right, thank you so much, Shishir, for that update from Maharashtra. And India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will be addressing public rallies in Saharanpur, Bulandshahr and Sambhal in India's northern state of Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh is one of the 3 Indian states, along with Bihar and West Bengal, which will undergo voting in 7 phases. Also, India's Union Home Minister Amit Shah will be addressing rallies in West Bengal's Balarghat and Bihar's Aurangabad. Both West Bengal and Bihar will see voting in 7 phases. Yogi Adityanath, Chief Minister of India's state of Uttar Pradesh, is scheduled to address a rally at Kathua in northern state of Jammu and Kashmir. Voting in Jammu and Kashmir is split into 5 phases. And the hearing of a PIL against the use of the INDIA acronym for the opposition group Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance is scheduled to be heard in Delhi's High Court on Wednesday. The Delhi High Court gave the opposition alliance a last and final opportunity of a week to reply to the PIL. Well, Andaman and Nicobar, along with Lakshadweep, is truly India's hidden coastal treasure. Lakshadweep is the smallest union territory in India, while Andaman and Nicobar is the maritime route in the Southeast Asian region. Let us take a tour to the 2 archipelagos as they go to the polls on April 19th.
The archipelago of Andaman and Nicobar Islands is one of India's union territories located in the Bay of Bengal, comprising about 836 islands spread over an area of 8,000 square kilometers. Situated approximately at a distance of about 1,400 kilometers from both the Indian cities Kolkata and Chennai, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands are divided into 3 districts with Port Blair as the administrative capital. The group of islands, rated high on the tourism list because of its natural beauty and pristine beaches, has been seeing a surge in infrastructure upgradation works in the recent years. These include projects like underwater fiber optic projects, GPS motion sensors, automated weather stations, solar energy plants, tourism infrastructure, and upgraded military bases. With a population of about 434,000, residing in 31 out of the over 800 islands, about 312,000 registered voters are exercising their franchise this time, which includes 162,000 males and about 149,000 female voters. 3 voters are from the 3rd gender category. During the 2019 elections, the lone seat was won by the Indian National Congress. The other prominent political parties in the archipelago are Bharatiya Janata Party, though other parties including Bahujan Samaj Party and the left parties also participate in the polls. Election is being closely monitored in the Union Territory, which is strategically important for India, particularly because of its location, as its northern point is merely 22 nautical miles from Myanmar and the southern post point is about 90 nautical miles from Indonesia. The Andaman and Nicobar region is also an important maritime route in the Southeast Asian region.
Well, another win for India at United Nations. India's nominee Jagjit Pavadia re-elected as a member of the International Narcotic Control Board for the 3rd term from 2025 to 2030. In the process, Pavadia received the highest number of votes among all the candidates for this position. India remains steadfast in its commitment to actively engage in the discourse within UN bodies, upholding the principle of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. The world is one family. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also shared the information to social media platform X, and I quote, "Today, India's nominee, Ms. Jagjit Pavadia, has been re-elected to the International Narcotic Control Board at elections held in New York for the term 2025-2030. India secured the highest number of votes amongst all elected member states onto the board," unquote. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. An earthquake of magnitude 3.1 on the Richter scale hit Gujarat's Bhavnagar on Tuesday. The National Centre for Seismology said the tremor shook the region. The earthquake caused a panic among residents. No immediate reports of damage or casualties have been received as of now. A massive fire broke out at a 4-story shop in Delhi's Gandhinagar market on Tuesday night. The tenders reached the spot after receiving the information along with the senior officials. The Delhi Fire Service said no one was injured in the incident. The reason of the blaze is not yet known, but it is suspected to be a short circuit. Morning Aarti being performed on the 2nd day of Navratri at Jhandewala Temple on Wednesday. The first Aarti of the day at Jhandewala Temple is called the Mangal Aarti. The devotees thronged the temple to offer prayers early morning. Navratra marks the beginning of the Hindu New Year. And still to come on DD India News Hour. US stock ends slightly higher while Asian stocks subdued on yen caution. Indian men's hockey team look to bounce back against Australia the third game. Host Aussies lead the 5-match series 2-0. And World Homeopathy Day is being celebrated today to raise awareness about this alternate medicinal practice that has minimal side effects and trusts body's self-healing powers.
The pulse of the pole-bound southernmost Indian state of Tamil Nadu.
Voting is our responsibility.
This is a big fight between BJP and India alliance.
Will you vote?
Yeah, power of democracy. This is a huge.
BJP is trying her best, for the past 10 years under the flagship of Sri Narendra Modi Garu.
The 2024 Lok Sabha polls in Tamil Nadu are witnessing the battle royale between DMK, AIADMK and the BJP.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Khurana. On to some business news now. The S&P 500 posted nominal gains on Tuesday, a day ahead of major inflation data. Wednesday's hotly anticipated consumer price index is at the top of most investors' minds as they tweak expectations on the timing and extent of the Federal Reserve's rate-cutting phase. According to preliminary data, the S&P 500 gained 0.15%, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 0.32%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.02%. While Asian stocks were muted as investors kept watch for possible intervention by Japanese authorities to stop the yen's decline and awaited US inflation data, Australian shares were up 0.3% in early trade, while Japan's Nikkei stock index was down by 0.41%. The Nikkei is looking to test 40,000 points again, with the yen slide seen helping fuel that push. However, further weakness in the Japanese currency could prompt authorities to intervene, especially if the yen breaks 152 per dollar. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index edged up 0.7% early, while China's blue chip CSI 300 Index was flat. And you're watching DD India News. Our time now for some sports news. In Indian Premier League, in a riveting contest, Sunrisers Hyderabad clinched a victory by a narrow margin of 2 runs against Punjab Kings in Mullanpur on Tuesday. Chasing 183 for a win, Punjab could only manage 180 for 6. Shashank Singh top scored 46 off 25 balls and Ashutosh Sharma also remained not out on 33 off 15 balls. Rajasthan Royals will square off with Gujarat Titans in Jaipur on Wednesday. Rajasthan have been unbeaten in their 4 matches so far. They're on top of the points table. On the other hand, Gujarat have lost 3 of the 5 matches and are at number 7. And on to sports more. Indian men's hockey team will take on Australia in the third game of the 5-match series on Wednesday. Having lost the opener 5-1 and second match 4-2, India now trail the series by 2-0. The 5-match series, part of India's Paris 2024 Olympic preparations, concludes on April 13th. At the Olympics, India and Australia are placed in Group B of the hockey competition. India, which won the bronze at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, will look to change the colour of the medal this time around. And beyond Munich, striker Harris Kane returned to North London to score his customary goal against Arsenal as the first leg of their Champions League quarter-final tie ended 2-2 on Tuesday. The former Tottenham Hotspur player, so often Arsenal's nemesis in North London derbies, stroked home a penalty in the 32nd minute as the Bundesliga side hit back to lead 2-1. Premier League leaders Arsenal, playing in their first Champions League quarter-final for 14 years, had gone in front early on with a clinical Bukayo Saka strike. But beyond showed them remain a European force to be reckoned with. Arsenal was stunned as their former striker Serge Gnabry levelled 6 minutes later and nailed rolled home his 39th goal. But Leandro Trossard equalised in the 76th minute to leave the tie hanging in the balance. And Real Madrid and Manchester City slugged out a thrilling 3-3 draw in a rip-roaring Champions League quarter-final clash in Madrid on Tuesday, leaving the tie between the last two holders of the trophy wide open for the second leg. Federico Valverde salvaged a draw for Real late on after City had taken a 3-2 lead with sumptuous strikes from Phil Foden and Josko Guardiola following a Ruben Dias own goal and Rodrigo strike that gave the host a half-time lead in Spain's capital. It was another epic encounter as the teams faced each other in a Champions League knockout tie for a third year running. Real eliminated City in the 2022 semi-finals, but Guardiola's side gained revenge a year later at the same stage. The winners of the tie ended up lifting the trophy both times. And world number one, Novak Djokovic made an apathetic start at the Monte Carlo Masters with a 6-1, 6-2 win over Russia's Roman Safiullin to ease into the third round. Djokovic looked fresh as he broke Safiullini's serve 3 times in the opening set, and a further 2 breaks in the second was enough to seal the win. Hubert Hurkacz moved into the second round with a 6-4, 3-6, 7-6 win, but was made to battle by Britain's Jack Draper after the Polish 10th seed looked like dominating early on. Alex de Minaur had little trouble seeing off the challenge of former champions Stan Wawrinka, winning 6-3, 6-0 to progress to the second round. German 5th seed Alexander Zverev made light work of his second round match, defeating Sebastian Ofner 6-3, 6-4. And Carlos Alcaraz is withdrawn from the Monte Carlo Masters due to a forearm injury. Alcaraz, who successfully defended his Indian Wells title last month before losing to Grigor Dimitrov in the Miami Open quarterfinals, was due to face Canada's Felix Auger-Aliassime. Alcaraz may also have an eye on his preparation ahead of the French Open, which begins on May 20th. Italian Sonego, who lost in the second qualifying round to Roberto Bautista Agut, has been handed a second chance as a lucky loser and will play Auger-Aliassime. And April 10th is being celebrated as the World Homeopathy Day, a day that serves as a global platform to make people aware about the principles and benefits of homeopathic medicine. Here is a detailed report.
World Homeopathy Day is celebrated on April 10th every year. The day offers an opportunity to explore and hold discussions on alternative medical systems. Homeopathic practitioners and users commemorate the day with the aim of spreading many advantages of using this alternative form of medicine. The goal of homeopathy is to address the whole body, including the way of life, hereditary predispositions, and disease history, to give relief. Homeopathic cures are modified to take care of every individual's particular requirements. The World Homeopathy Day also underlines the importance of encouraging people to take up homeopathy as a profession. The day aims to promote evidence-based healthcare practices and also using human beings' own healing power to cure a disease. Benefits of homeopathic medicines are many. Homeopathy promotes the use of natural recovery processes for many illnesses, utilizing the body's healing power. Homeopathic remedies are generally tailored to address the root cause of the illness. Homeopathic medicines have the least side effects as they are generally made of non-toxic substances. Homeopathic treatment can easily be integrated with other medical systems, fostering a holistic path of wellness. Unlike other medicines, homeopathic pills do not hamper digestion or lower the body's resistance. World Homeopathy Day traces its roots back to the birth of Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, the founder of the alternative form of medicine. He was born on April 10, 1755. Hahnemann's idea about using highly diluted substances to stimulate the body's healing response laid the groundwork for this alternative medical system. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lepakshi Kurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.